Hello, and welcome to We Will Manage, the podcast exploring the weird and wonderful world of work. We are two young professionals figuring out our careers one conversation at a time. Today, we are talking about finding investors.
So strap your boots and join us to learn where everyone is putting their money, what to skip when pitching your project, and why your family are all fools.
Are you going to be editing this episode?
I'm going to be editing this episode. If there's any mistakes, bear with us while I learn. We apologize before the fact, just in case. But yeah, in theory, I will be editing this episode. So yeah, let us know if you notice any differences. We just had a little chat before pressing record. But for those of you watching, you will see that I look bold because we changed.
This is banging fashion, man.
Yes,
having your hair all slicked back.
Which basically is just because it's so hot here. I've been putting off washing my hair because I don't want to wear it down anyway. So I've just been wearing it in buns and in plaits, and I haven't washed it in about a week. So maybe TMI. But anyway, we changed the recording date, and normally I would wash my hair to look better for the recording. So yeah, new look today.
But you know what it's like being online, you got to be real.
Exactly. So yeah, insight there for people who are only listening.
So today we are going to be talking about investment and like getting investors. So this is a topic that I think is really interesting for both of us at the moment, especially me today. Yeah. Literally today, I had the conversation with my co-founder, like, okay, we've got to start fundraising, like properly, seriously fundraising. So it's very on topic for me. And you recently did your first ever pitch in front of investors.
Yeah, which that was, not long ago that first We Will Manage Mondays came out about pitching.
Yeah. Do you wanna maybe tell us how that went? Give us a little update.
Yeah, so it went well. I did get some interest, which is very good. Already more than I was kind of expecting.
First ever pitch, and she's already getting investors interested.
Exactly. I was very happy with that, but I did get very nervous. More than nervous, I just kind of... I think I might have mentioned this to you, that they were running behind with the pitches. So they were being very strict with the time, and they were showing you pieces of paper at 1 minute, then at 2 minutes, and then at 2:30, and then it was like, stop. So that I wasn't expecting that. I would have preferred. I'd prepared it for the 3 minutes. So I'd almost just prefer if they'd been like, even 30 seconds left, but even if they'd just been like, and time up, the countdown caught me really off guard, and it kind of made me, like, when I saw the 1 minute had gone by, I was like, and from there I was like, I have to, and I got quite nervous, so I didn't say things the way I'd wanted to say them, but I still got people ask questions in the moment, which was more than some other people, which was nice. Some people came up to me afterwards at my booth. So yeah, it was good. It was a good first experience.
So cool. Yeah, and already having people like asking questions, showing interest, even if it's not investors, even if it's maybe the kind of client you would be directed at, or just to see if people are interested and how they react to the business idea. So that's really
cool. People who are maybe in the same kind of field, that were saying, that were reaffirming that it was something that they could see working, and that they could see that there was a space for it, which was interesting. So yeah,
super cool. Yeah, I mean, just to give a little of insight on, so that's kind of your place of the experience you've had looking for investment, because up until now with your current company, so Costa Studios, you have self-funded
everything.
Self-funded, so and then as soon as you had customers, you were able to find more work. And has it ever been an idea, or has it ever crossed your mind to consider looking for funding to try and expand? Or
to be honest, no, not until I was thinking of wanting a physical space. And at first that was even if we just had like a studio, a physical studio, as in just a office basically, or something like that. That's something that would probably be quite out of my reach in Malaga. Just right now rent is so expensive that until I got to that point, not really.
And do you know, I mean, we'll start kind of getting into the topics. It's such a broad topic, so we're going to keep it to kind of 4 under topics that I thought were interesting to start with.
Yeah, I'm excited because I don't know much about any of this, so yeah, I'm excited to see what we're going to talk about today.
So the first word, like buzzword in the investment world is bootstrapping. Do you know
Already
what
have no
bootstrapping is?
idea. No. Bootstrapping. No, no idea. No
So
clue.
bootstrapping is what you've done up until now for your company. So bootstrapping
Okay.
is when you don't look for any external funding and you try and go as far as you can in your business without having any funding, be that dilutive or non-dilutive, which are other buzzwords that we'll then get into. So a lot of the times when you do start a company, the first question is, do I want to bootstrap for as long as possible? So do I want to, self-fund, try and get customers as quick as possible to fund things? Do I put a lot of my own investment into it? And up until what point can I do that? Or do I look for funding, and at what point to grow more exponentially, so quicker? But then obviously you're having to give things away for this funding unless you're getting like grants. So yeah, so I mean the first topic is bootstrapping and how far you can go, and kind of this question of, do I bootstrap and grow little by little, or do I look for funding and try and grow faster?
Yeah.
So I mean I think it was interesting. It's interesting to hear that you never considered funding.
No,
So you
it
considered
is
that
true
the best
that,
way to grow was just
yeah,
organically.
I did get some grants, now that you've said that, when I became self-employed. So that wasn't even at the beginning because I didn't officially become self-employed when I first started. But yeah, I did get a few grants, which helped, but a lot of them were actually like very specific. So, a grant for buying materials that you might need, or for the service of, like, one thing that was offered was like to have someone do your social media for 3 months, or your website, and like things like to help kickstart people. So there was helps like that. But yeah, no, it's not something I'd ever considered. And I think it's because neither, as far as I know, the two people that I have closest to me that have started their own businesses and been self-employed are my parents, and they never did it with investment. So it just wasn't kind of something that I thought about, I guess. Like, I knew it was there, but it wasn't something that I thought was a way to go, at least not to begin with.
And this money that you got, so grants for, you said, for buying material, just
Yeah.
help as an entrepreneur. These are things that it's just money that you received and didn't have to do anything in return or give anything back.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we call non-dilutive money. So that means that it's in that person's or that community or that association or whatever, whoever gives you the money, it's in their interest one way or the other to give you that money. It's either to boost the economy, maybe they hope you're creating jobs in wherever you live.
Yeah.
So it's in Switzerland, for example, there's so many ways to get non-dilutive money because it's a country that isn't in massive debt.
Yeah.
So they're constantly trying to boost that economy, create jobs, get money flowing. And for that, they invest so much in startups. So that's this grant money, free money per se. And that's what we call non-dilutive money. And then when we talk about investment, usually we're talking about dilutive. And do you know why it's called dilutive? When you get money, you have to give something away. So most of the time, it's parts in your company.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is at least that's what I understand is what I would expect to happen.
So then the question comes down to, do I bootstrap and not give anything away and maintain this full control? I do whatever I want with my company because it's just mine and nobody else cares. Or do I get money from somebody else? But usually things start getting a little bit complicated. So you'll either have an investor that then wants you to succeed, which sounds great. But depending on the kind of investor you get, it can be a bit interfering. Do you think, I mean, you've made the decision to bootstrap and that's what makes sense for you, and you've been able to grow how you've been able to grow. And honestly, you've been able to do so well because you've been able to employ someone. What do you think that could look like? Like if you were to have to look for investment now, let's say, I mean, for example, for this office space, how do you think that could change? I mean, one, the way you work.
Yeah.
And also, do you think the growth would be worth the giving away part of what you're earning? What do you think of that whole situation?
Yeah, I think it would change a lot just so I think, first of all, while you were talking, the reason that I think I was able to do things how I was able to do things is because I am able to work from home. and I don't need an office space, which some businesses need to start off with. That's not something that we needed. Also, there's the side of not needing things like, to have labs or, to have any kind of big, expensive technical equipment. Obviously computers, but that's something that nowadays everybody has one. So it's not really like a big, like out there investment. So I think that's the reason why it worked for me. And I think it would become a lot more, less boutique, I guess. It would become more established in the way that it would be, the investment, I think, would go to a physical space, which always just gives a certain weight when you do have physical offices. I think it does give off a certain, feel of a place if they've got a physical space. Equipment wise, we'd be able to get more equipment. So whether that be computers, but also just in the sense of for all the content creation we do, there's a lot of equipment that right now we only rent out when we need it. All that kind of stuff, we'd be able to have it in-house and then probably hire more people. So yeah, it would become just much more established.
A big company.
In a sense, yeah, exactly. It would feel much more official. Not that it doesn't already, but it would kind of feel, less homemade, I guess.
And that's not something that calls you at all to...
It's not something, yeah, I mean, it's something that would be interesting for sure, but it's not something that I right now particularly crave. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's interesting because it's not necessarily the risk of looking for investment that puts you off. It's simply the idea of it would completely change the way that you work. It would change your company.
Yeah.
Entirely.
Absolutely. And now a whole new aspect has come into play, which is not being sure of where I want to be based. So then that obviously throws a spanner into the works for that as well. Like, where would I even want that office space to be?
So
I
it
don't
would
know
bring a lot
right
more
now.
responsibility. You would have to be a lot more...
Be tied down in a way, like this is now where we have the office. And obviously, as it isn't just me anymore, I can't just pick up and change my mind and go somewhere else because now I have an investor who's, saying, no, we need to stay here until we make that money back or whatever. So it gives a lot less freedom. And if I was very sure of where I wanted to be, then yeah, it probably would be like a next step, but I just don't feel like I'm there just yet.
Yeah, so you have the benefit of staying lean, staying flexible because you are a small team and you're self-funded and cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think that's a really good example of the contrast of the two industries because like you said, I mean, you are able to work with simply, if you have to, simply your computer, your camera, and you can get customers and do the work. And then that's in contrast to what I'm now getting myself into. Simply, I mean, we've made a plan, and simply to be able to get our product ready on the market. Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you.
You're not a third?
No, just two. Sneezes.
Coughs and sneezes come in threes.
Threes.
And they spread nasty diseases.
Well, isn't it one's a wish, two's a kiss?
Oh, I like that one better.
And then I think my one goes at three's a disappointment. So.
Oh dear.
So depending on if you get three, we go with your ones.
Oh, okay.
If it's two, then my one.
Sorry. Us to be able to get our product simply ready for the market. So for us to be able to get to that step where we could fund anything with clients, unless we're very smart about it and very good salesmen, we need at least like 500,000 francs or euros just to get our product ready, certified, all of these steps. So in this kind of technical, I'm going to say hardware company or something where you're producing a product, you need money to set that up, to be able to start selling and to be able to fund yourself. Yeah,
the initial investment is important. I remember when I went to set up my business plan when I became self-employed at the town hall in Malaga, that was, one of the questions. And they were like, and what do you need to start? And I was like, well, I've already started. I started with nothing. So yeah, literally, I don't need anything to start, I've got a computer, obviously, because I needed it for uni. And that's me set, like obviously there's the investment in like a website and all those kind of digital products, but there's no like need for an initial big investment, like when, like you say, with products or places that need a physical space for whatever reason, all those kind of things. Is very, very different for starting.
And it's also interesting because you haven't once mentioned your time. which is often the case for startups. You don't usually, to start, I need my salary because I'm the most important part. So it's usually the case with startups. And in fact, investors, if you talk about salary of the founders to start with, they're going to be like, what are you investing then? If it's not even your time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm in a situation where us currently, to be able to get going, we have to look for a funding. So I've had to learn a lot about this world. I'm in no means an expert, but we're going to go into some of the things that I think are the most interesting. So I think one first thing is everything to do with timing. So not only when should I look for funding, but also how much time is that going to take? So to put this into perspective, I think the time I've spent on applying for example, grants, so we've already received a couple grants, that's like a full-time job for at least a week. So if we were to put that into perspective with you, imagine like how much time do you spend on one particular client per week, for example, and like to try and put that into a calculation of cost. How much is it costing you simply to put together that application of something that you don't know you're going to get?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you imagine like you have to spend 40% of your week on applying for grants or or pitching to investors, it's a full-time job.
It's so time consuming. I mean, the amount of time I spent on a 3-minute pitch is crazy.
I think especially for grants, we get so carried away, like grants or accelerator or incubator programs, all of these things that are like, oh, it's free, let's go apply for it. And then you end up spending your whole time applying for these things that you don't know you're going to get. And you stop working on your project or your product. Yeah. So it's like, you really have to take that into account. So really measure, okay, what is the investment for me in my time going into this application or this financing round? And is that the best use of my time right now? Or should I be concentrating on my product and my development and working on my customers' projects? And then when we're talking looking for investors,
even harder, even crazier. There aren't neat little forms to fill out for those.
Exactly.
Normally.
And you go through so much. I mean, if you get an investor, once you get an investor interested, which is already such a big step of pitching, contacting people, researching which kind of investors you're looking for, blah, 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 blah. Once you get an investor interested, they're then going to go through the whole process of due diligence, which is
big word.
This other buzzword in the investment world, which is due diligence, which basically just means checking you out.
Yeah, doing their homework to make sure it's a smart investment.
Exactly. Due diligence takes so much time. They want all of your documents. They want all of your proofs. Any document that you could possibly think of, plus 10 more that you would probably have to produce, especially for this person. Yeah. So it's a full-time job. And I think a lot of the time that's why one-person companies, it's really hard to get investors interested because they know that funding is a full-time job. So what are you doing while you're going through this whole process? Have you stopped your development? And then when it comes to when should I raise money, I think here it really is, you've got to be able to make a plan. And it's not just like, oh, I've run out of money, I need some. One, that's not going to get you any investors.
No good ones anyway.
Yeah. You need to plan your roadmap. And you need to figure out, okay, how much am I going to need and how far is that going to take me? Also to be able to figure out how much do I need, not to look for too much so as to not give too much away if you're getting dilutive investment. But this is exactly how much I need and where is that going to get me? I think if you have any questions, obviously go ahead.
One of the things that for me was coming up a lot, so when you were talking there about how much time it takes, one of the things that somebody said to me that they recommended was before looking for investors to get a partner who was much more financially savvy than I was, which isn't hard. Financially savvy when it comes to my own money. But when we're talking about, hundreds of thousands to go into projects, like I have no way of that being tangible to me. When someone says, okay, so how much money do you need? And it's like, I know how much pasta and vegetable costs. I don't know how much it costs, When they said that made complete sense to me. But then kind of the next question was, and where do you find this? You know, finding investors is one thing. I think finding a partner, I was like, I have no idea where to even start, you know? And when I said that to the person who recommended it to me, he said, well, just networking events like this, you know, there's no really cut and dry. What's the expression? Well, you know, fast way of just of finding someone who you trust enough to become a partner with and that you're going to trust with the money side of things, which is a big deal. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess that kind of, you know, it was okay. So how do I, obviously it also applies to investors. How do I go about, is it just networking events? Because again, that is, in this case, it was a 2-day event, 2 days where I basically couldn't work. So if I'm at this event for 2 days, it's not sustainable for me to be doing this week in, week out. So how am I supposed to find this perfect partner that can be doing all the financial side of stuff? Yeah. So then we can then find an investor.
I mean, that's a really good question that honestly, I don't have a very good answer to. Here, I've heard of events that are made kind of especially for that. I mean, they frame it as looking for a co-founder. What are the different types of investors? And it's like kind of the school class of entrepreneurship is you learn these different categories. But I think, I mean, kind of anybody could be an investor. Anybody that's willing to put money into your project, they're an investor. Yeah. But the first well-known investment type are called FFFs, so the triple Fs, which means friends, families, and fools. Basically people around you that could have some spare money, that believe in you, believe in your project, but don't necessarily have any professional investing experience.
Expertise,
or any expertise in what you're doing. And that's why you call them friends, family, and fools.
Because they're just trusting you, rather than, doing all that due diligence.
Exactly, yeah. So it's kind of like easy money from those that surround you that are willing to take that risk, because it's usually the first thing you look for. So very early stage is FFFs, so friends, families, and fools. And then you move on to angel investments. So angel investments are usually people, so a particular person that has a lot of money and is looking to put it into projects, very early stage companies to try and help them grow. So usually to an angel investor, you're going to be giving a fair chunk of your business because they're taking a lot of risk.
Yeah.
And how do you calculate how much you give them? You have to try and figure out how to value what you currently have. So whether that's just an idea, whether that's something that's already running, do you already have income? And then there's a gazillion ways to calculate what that is worth.
Yeah. Crazy.
And then you calculate how much they deserve. And I've been going to like a few workshops recently. I mean, I had a whole training at the end of last year, but I went to a workshop recently in Zurich last week. And it was all about this. So it was called Opening Up Your Shareholding Base, which means more people that own bits of your company, basically. And it was a very dense, I'm not going to say boring, dense workshop. And my conclusion from that was the same conclusion that we draw from pretty much anything, which is put it in writing. Contracts. It could
either be contracts or communication. Which one's you gonna say?
Both.
Yeah.
So that's how you choose and make sure you're on good basis with your investors. So maybe we'll go back into that afterwards, but just to go ahead with the different types of investors. So you have your friends, families, and fools, which are small quantities of money, unless you have a really rich uncle, which would be great. Then you have angel investors, and then you have corporate ventures. Is that not right? No, VCs, venture capitals, which are companies that professionally invest. And so that's like a lot more money, a lot more due diligence, and they basically have a portfolio of different companies that they're going to invest in to try and make sure that they make money somewhere. So they're really looking at maybe slightly lower risk than the angel investors. That's kind of a shot in the dark. Venture capital, VCs, venture capitalists. They're really looking to double the money or triple the money or 10 times the money, because they are working with individual people's money that they put into these companies.
I want the monies.
Yeah. Give me the money. I'd say that the last type of investor is what we call a strategic investor. And that for you, for example, would be maybe working with, I'm trying to think of a big company that works in your industry. So
Right.
would it be like a production company? Or maybe for you, it would be if you're talking about specifically the work that you do on photos for estate agents, then a strategic investor for you would be an estate agent.
Yeah.
And why is that? It's because they could either have expertise in what you do that could help you. And because if they invest, then they're going to be interested in you succeeding. Then it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah.
They could also be an exit. I don't know if this is even something you've considered for your company.
No.
But an exit is when you get bought and you get a load of money for your company, but then you're not in charge anymore.
Yeah, it's in a project where I am involved doing the branding. That is kind of their goal, is to launch really powerfully when we do launch the project that we're working on, in the hopes that a big company will want to buy it and buy us out.
Nice.
And it's an interesting way of like looking at something. It's like, okay. And then for this, it makes sense. And I understand why. But yeah, it's an interesting goal to have.
I mean, so many people go into founding companies with an exit as their objective, but then so many people don't. Like, I think you're a very good example that has done something out of passion. And the idea of selling that to someone else, it's kind of like giving your baby away, right?
Yeah, literally. It's like, why would I want to do that? It'd be very, very strange.
I don't want to get too much into detail because I'm not an expert here and it's something that we're looking into now. But you have to be strategic with strategic investors, because if you are a chocolate company and you get bought by Cadbury's, then, or sorry, not bought by, and Cadbury's invests in you.
Yeah.
And then they have a part of your company. So they have a little bit of, control, or at least they help in decision making, blah, blah, blah. Then Nestle in Switzerland, they're probably going to be like, do I want to get involved? Sometimes it could be really good because they're like, oh, if Cadbury's interested, then it's probably something
it must be
for
good.
me.
Yeah.
But if they have decision making power, do I really want to get involved because I'm their competitor?
Yeah.
So it's a whole crazy world. I think one of the main things you have to look into when you're looking or choosing an investor is how aligned are we on our goals? Yeah. Do we want the same thing? In the same way that we've mentioned a gazillion times, it's kind of like you're hiring somebody, but they now have decision-making power in your company.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that your goals are aligned if you want that to be successful. And then that's things that you can have lots of conversations about, put it into contracts, protect yourself the maximum, because usually,
always,
especially if we're talking about strategic investors, then they are a lot more powerful than you.
Yeah.
If you do get into a bit of
tricky situation, you could just find yourself out on the street with nothing.
Exactly. Working with professional investors is, better in a way, because they know the risk, they understand the risk. They'll probably be able to act better in that kind of situation, maybe get you in the better mindset than if your uncle rocks up and he's like, what do you mean you've lost the money? What do you mean you don't have any clients?
What would happen? So they just lose the money. That's just the risk that they take. As an investor.
Usually with your company, you are liable to a certain amount. For example, I know that in Switzerland you can have, I'm not sure what the words are in English, but I think it's like limited liability company. And that means that the founders are liable for the initial capital that they put into the company. So 20,000 francs, I think, is the minimum. Yeah, 20,000 francs is the minimum capital that you put into the company initially. So if you go bankrupt, you owe whoever you owe 20,000 and that's it, and they can't take anything of yours. And that's the difference between having a company and not having a company. If you just work in your own name and you just do jobs and stuff, if you owe people money, that's your, like, that could be your house, that could be your car.
Your assets, anything. Yeah.
And that's the difference in having a company. So you're liable up to however much. So if it's a big company, then it's usually like 100,000. If it's a small company, then it's 20,000. And then the size of the company that you create, so the type of company you create, that will define most probably the type of investors that are interested. Because if you are a limited liability company and you're asking for 2 million investment, they're like, you haven't put that much. You haven't put very much into it at all.
Yeah.
Do you really think that I'm gonna? So let's lighten it up a bit. We're going to get into pitching afterwards, but first I want to play a little game.
Okay.
I'm gonna do 3 pitches. I'm gonna pitch 3 companies to you, and I'm gonna give you 50,000 euros, and you can either keep that money or please invest in one of these companies, okay? You don't have to if you don't like any of the pitches, but I would like you to choose between the 3.
Okay. I'm just getting into the mindset of someone who has 50,000 just to spare.
Exactly.
I'm there. Okay, let's do it.
Who are you? Give us a little bit of a look into your brain.
Okay, so I am Anna Harrison. Those are my never used names. My middle names. And let's see. I am from a wealthy family, but I worked my way up into a cosmetics industry, have my own cosmetic line, and I also married rich. So I probably have more than 50K lying around.
Okay, brilliant. I'm so happy to meet you. Very happy to meet you. I'm glad you took the time to listen to my company pitch.
Okay, let's hear them.
So, this is 3 different people with 3 different companies.
Okay.
So, first pitch is, we're building the first AI therapist designed specifically for Gen Z. Not just to talk, but to coach, validate, and check in every day. Think. Emotional fitness meets ChatGPT, but with real empathy. We're pre-launch and currently prototyping with 2 university partners. The market is huge, the tech is ready, and the stigma around mental health finally breaking. So that's my first company to pitch you.
Okay.
Second company is, last year, 50,000 freelancers used our tool to automatically generate invoices, chase late payments, and get paid faster. We've processed over 30 million euros in transactions and grew 4 times over, all without a sales team. Next, expand features into taxes and budgeting. We're not just building tools, we're becoming the financial OS for solo workers. So there you go, second pitch. And then the third pitch is, every year, millions of pet food bags end up in landfills. Plastic lined, unrecyclable, and designed to last 500 years. We're changing that with a fully compostable, subscription-based pet food brand that's ethical from ingredient to packaging. Our kibble is made from insect protein, which uses 95% less land and water than beef, because feeding your pet shouldn't cost the planet.
Oh, guilt tripping with that last one.
So I have a bit of an ulterior motive with these 3 pitches, but I would like you to tell me which pitch, if any, you would like to invest in as very wealthy, married into a rich family, and also came from a rich family, and also has your own cosmetic company, where you would like to put your money.
I would say probably the one that convinced me the most would be the second.
Can you tell me why? Do you have an idea? I can read it to you again if you want.
Think it's because it's already up and running, so it feels like less of a risk, whereas the other 2 felt, especially the first one, you specifically say that it's still in the testing stage. The last one, I don't think you say at what stage you're at, but it also feels very new. Mm-hmm. It still feels like an idea rather than something that's happening. So getting all the stats in the second one showed that it's something that already works and has potential to keep growing. And then the last one kind of pulled at the heartstrings is something that I think is a cool idea.
I took that one specifically for you. Maybe not for Anna Harrison, but definitely for Alba Harden.
And the first one sounds like a cool idea, but it's a bit like an eye roll.
So super interesting. I'm really glad you chose that one.
Okay.
Because
it was a game, but it was actually a test.
But thank you very much for your money. Bye-bye.
No worries. There you go. 50K richer.
So basically, for these 3 pitches, each pitch I concentrated on one particular thing that I wanted to really prioritize in what I was talking about. And the second one is the thing that I think is the most important for your pitching. So we're going to get into that afterwards. And it's something that we actually spoke about I believe we spoke about in our mini episode, pitching. So if you haven't listened to that, go check that out because we went through Alba's pitch. But so these 3 pitches, each focused on a specific element. The first one, so the AI therapist, is focused on potential. So really showing that there are so many people that this could apply to.
And it's a very now thing as well. It's very with the times. It's something that is very interesting. AI and all that is something that people are interested in because it's so happening at the moment. Let's be honest, probably is the future. So, yeah.
It's really interesting you said that because I looked up. So in a study that was done last year in 2024, 37% of all of the venture funding in the world went to AI companies. So went to artificial intelligence companies. So it's the big buzzword.
It's where people,
when it comes to,
people are putting their money there.
Yeah, so people really believed it. Anyway, so the first one focused on potential. So we talked a lot about the market is huge, the tech is ready, we could touch so many people, it's really in fashion, mental health, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But we didn't really talk about actual people
Numbers.
that have tried it. Exactly. Whereas
it was a good point that two universities were involved. That is something that you think, okay, so there's seriousness there kind of thing is what goes to mind when you said that.
Yeah. So that's actually really cool because that shows traction, which is the second point, which is the one that was really concentrated on in the second one. So we really talked about traction. So investors are always looking for traction. Like you could have the best idea in the world, maybe nobody wants to buy it, you know?
Yeah.
So traction is showing, okay, how many people are interested? Have there been people that have actually spent money on it? So showing traction is basically showing what's the market's reaction to it. And it's honestly the most powerful thing you can show when you're pitching because it shows not only is there potential, but the business is there. Like you've already had that confirmation. In fact, I don't know if I told you this, but there's one of the best, or what's considered one of the best pitches was given by a company at a pitching competition. It was called Owl, I think. And it's basically a baby monitor, but their pitch is so compelling because they show how pretty much without developing the product, even they were able to show the traction. So many people, this number of people, you know, clicked on the link to buy this product, even though it wasn't actually available yet. And there's so many ways to show traction in what your project, like doing little questionnaires and, you know, trying to get companies to give you letters of intent and
getting data together, basically. Yeah.
So that's a super powerful thing to put into your pitches, is to show the traction of what you're pitching, even if it doesn't exist yet. And then the last one you can probably imagine, but it was focused on the mission. So it's important to show the mission behind of what you're doing, but don't only do that. Because investors are looking for a return on their money. So what I've done is basically I've put together a list of, if you are looking for investors, what are the red flags they're looking for?
Okay.
So I have, first of all, 2 pitches. Both of them contain a red flag.
Oh, okay.
I actually have 3. So the first one is really along the lines of what we've spoken about. So we've created a social app that maps your emotional life, not just your activities. You log feelings, get mood insights, and connect anonymously with people feeling the same. It's like a mindfulness network meets a digital diary. We're still pre-launch, but everybody we've talked to said they definitely use it. Everybody's going to love it and they're going to pay loads of money.
Yeah, I guess it just doesn't feel serious because it's like all our friends and family would use it.
It's like us putting out this podcast.
Like, yeah.
All of our friends and family were like, yeah, it's such a good idea.
Such a good idea. Yeah, if you can always find you can always find people to tell you what you want to hear. It doesn't actually mean anything. So yeah, I guess, lack of actual data.
Yeah, there's a really famous startup book called The Mom Test, which is it's a way of validating traction, showing traction, or just checking your idea. I'm not exactly sure, I haven't read it, but it's very famous in the startup community. So the second pitch with another kind of red flag in terms of how you do your pitch is the following.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm listening.
We are a quantum compute optimized B2B solution that hyperindexes product market alignment using LLM-based pipelines for decision intelligence. Our goal is to future-proof enterprise workflows for strategic resilience. Would you give me your money?
No.
Why not?
Well, for
Do you know what I do?
No. Well, yeah, that's the thing. I felt like I zoned out after like 2 sentences because I was like, I have no idea what's going on right now. I have no idea what she's talking about. Yeah. Just no clarity, I guess.
Exactly. So that's definitely something you talked about in our pitching episode, which was try and make it clear for everybody, even those that aren't in your industry, because chances are some of your investors aren't going to be experts in what you do. And even if they are, it's just annoying to try and have to figure out what you do rather than you just telling me in clear terms. And then the last one is, we're building a wearable for dogs that helps track mood, stress, and fitness using heart rate variability and AI. Our goal is to help owners understand what their pets are feeling. It's just the two of us. I'm a former dog trainer, and my co-founder's a children's book illustrator.
That felt unnecessary. Okay.
Do you think we're the right people for the job?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, and again, just kind of lack of data as well. But yeah, also that the people who are behind it don't feel particularly qualified. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the dog trainer, but the illustrator.
If she also like studied like, I don't know, sales or financing in the evenings, then maybe.
Yeah, and that's maybe what I should have mentioned if she did.
Yeah.
So we've kind of shown like making things clear. I mean, again, we spoke about this in the pitching episode, so we're not going to get too much into the actual pitching part of things, but to put together some red flags that I think are really interesting that I've come across myself in pitching events. I mean, the first advice I would give to anybody that's starting to pitch is just pitch so many times. Pitch to everybody, pitch to anybody, and get their feedback, because I think every time I've pitched, I've then adjusted my pitch deck depending, like from the comments that I've gotten or from the questions that I've gotten. You can learn a lot from the questions you get in terms of what wasn't clear enough.
Yeah. Because when you're in it, it's so hard to see, like for something for you that's so obvious, somebody who's hearing it for the first time might not understand it. So yeah, definitely share it with as many people as possible and as many different kinds of people as possible as well that do different things.
Exactly. So recently I sent Alba my pitch deck and I said, would you invest your money in me?
And I said, absolutely. If I had any of it.
I did that to a couple friends and I got some great feedbacks. I mean, it's as easy as that. You don't even have to pitch to people. Just send them your pitch deck. But anyway, so some red flags that is really going to put off investors when you do pitch is your dedication. So I've been in a situation where there were a couple of companies that pitched and they often ask your, like the time you spend on this company. Are you 100%? Blah, blah, blah. And at one point there was a pitch and the guy that was pitching, he replied, no, I'm only at 20% or something because I have to pay the bills. And while that's a fair point, the investor is like, okay, but you're not willing to take the risk of your time. Why should I take the risk of putting my money into this? If you really believed in what you're doing, then you would sacrifice everything and anything. Which, I mean, it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, I understand it from a investor's point of view of, is this person all in kind of vibe? But yeah, obviously that's just not realistic. If you are just a normal person or, living in having to pay mortgage or rent or whatever, being able to just say, well, I'm going to throw everything I've got into this. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. If you haven't got any kind of cushion to fall back on, that's just not realistic. But I understand it from the investor's point of view that, okay, then how are you going to make this work if you're not giving it 100%? Because if you don't give it 100%, it is really hard.
So, I mean, like you say, it's an interesting one for me because because he would argue, like, obviously what you're saying. So he would argue, I can't take that risk. I have to pay the bills. I have to feed my family, which fair enough.
I don't have the luxury of being able to just sacrifice it all.
Exactly. So it's a tough one for me. But in the investor community, I mean, you'd have to find somebody that really aligns with you on terms of understands the situation.
Yeah.
in general, they take that as a bad sign. So if you're still working at another company, if you're only at 50%, a lot of people say, I'm at 100%, but because I work 200%, you know? So and you can't give 200%. You can't work
no, let's
for
not
16
make
hours a
things
day.
up. Let's just not make things up, okay?
Any kind of investment that you've put into the company is going to be a good sign for them because it means that you believe in what you're doing. Another one that I find really interesting is a lot of the time investors will like test you. So they'll ask you hard questions or maybe challenge you on specific things. And what's really interesting, or what they are often looking at, isn't necessarily your answer to those questions, but how you respond. So if you're put in an uncomfortable situation and you're challenged and you're criticized, how do you react? Because that's going to say a lot about how you are as an entrepreneur, how you are as a person. And any project, no matter how good the idea is, it needs somebody behind it that's going to be able to get things done. If you're if you're immediately defensive, then either you don't know your stuff because you're feeling attacked, or you're a not very collaborative person. So that could make it difficult. I mean, obviously there are exceptions. If you're the technical guy, but usually if you're doing the pitching, then you're the main face of the company.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you can keep that in mind, where I don't feel like if investors, I don't feel like are people that kind of play around or have time to waste kind of thing. So if they are asking you questions, they are interested. So there's a reason why, if they're saying, but why would this even work? It's, you know, it's for a it's not because they're trying to humiliate you. I don't think that they've got time for that. So if they're asking you questions, they're interested, and there's a reason why. So yeah, it's just like
take it
interview.
in your stride, stay calm and respond as you can. And you can always say, that's a really good question, I'm going to get back to you on that one. Another red flag for investors is when you say there's no competition. Because if there's no competition, either there's no market. Or you just haven't done your research. So be careful about that. And then another one also in terms of like the people behind the project is the team. So are you complementary? How many people are you? Do you have the background? What kind of... I mean, a lot is shown simply in your pitch. It's like your school presentation. Get your score on the work that was done, but also how you presented it. Which seemed very unfair at the time.
We're very visual. So if something, when we look at it, doesn't feel, you know, properly done or whatever, then it's just automatically going to give you they're going to go in with a predisposition of what they expect, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, if you can't sell the company to an investor, then how are you going to sell the company to a client, you know, or your product to a client? If you're a great salesman, you could sell pretty much any company.
Anything, For
more details, like for more tips, I'd say, about what to include in a pitch, then you can check our little episode.
Yeah, We Will Manage pitching.
Detail. Yeah. It was our first We Will Manage Mondays.
Yeah.
Very exciting. It's such a dense topic, and it's just so many things that I'm still learning as I go.
Yeah. And depending on what kind of investment you're looking for, I'm sure there's like thousands different, you know, rabbit holes you can go into.
100%. Yeah. And it's all about like how much you're looking for. Do you want that person involved? Are you just looking for somebody that's like an expert in something? So you want to give them equity. There's so many ways to get
so many things.
So I looked up like some little interesting facts, because we like to give our listeners some interesting insights. So the first one was about the AI that I mentioned. Like almost 40% of all the money invested basically last year was into AI companies, like AI
Crazy.
startups.
Do you know, I doubt it, but do you know if there's like any other thing that got that like as high a percentage? Yeah, like was there anything else? I mean, I'm guessing not, because 40% is crazy. So I guess 60% it turns into very little percentages all over the place.
A lot went into clean tech, which is technologies that are for the environment. A lot of biotech. Biotech is health. Or medtech. I don't know what the difference between biotech and medtech is. But yeah, the sciences, kind of the big industries.
Kind of what you'd expect, Yeah.
And then something that I found interesting was which countries, like from which countries did most of the investment come from last year in the world. The top one in Europe, so if we're talking Europe, came from the UK. So UK is a brilliant place to get funding if you're in Europe. Second one is France. Third is, and UK is like double France. So UK is massive.
Yeah, in comparison. Crazy.
I guess we can't really call it Europe anymore, but
Well,
it's not the EU.
yeah.
But yeah, so UK, France, then Germany, which is pretty much as France, Sweden, and then Switzerland in 5th place.
Okay.
Is that 6th place? No, 5th place.
Interesting.
And then Spain is only 2 more further down, which is crazy.
With a lot of grants and stuff, obviously I don't really know with investment, but with lots of grants and stuff, I know that for some reason, Spain gets given quite a lot from the European Union and then don't do a very good job at advertising it. So then they're like, oh my God, quick! We've got like this much money still for this grant and we haven't talked about it, so nobody's applied for it. So like, I know that's a big thing. With a few of the ones that I've applied for, it's been like, I've seen it in like the last push because it's like 1 month until the end of the application and they have hardly gotten any money.
And then the last little fun data fact, which isn't actually fun at all, is about the gender gap. So if we compare fully women-founded companies and fully male-founded companies, in 2024, only 2.3% of venture capitalist money went to fully women-founded companies, whereas male only received 84%.
Oh my. That's interesting.
Is,
how many were there of women? Is that
exactly.
just is all the ones that were women founded then got investment, but there's so few that it's only makes up 2%? Or was there some very strange stuff going on there? Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know if that's global or Europe?
That's global.
Global. Okay. Interesting.
The source is the Founders Forum group.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully it is. I mean, not that it's any better. We did talk about this a bit in our episode 6, I believe, of Women in Business. Yeah.
With our friend Marina.
With Marina. Yeah, that hopefully, I want to say, but it's still sad, it is because there were just less women only. I mean, still,
companies.
Even if it's not women only, if it's male only was 83 or whatever you said, that means that like, that leaves only like 10% or something for if there is male. So, I mean, we do know that there are less women entrepreneurs. So maybe it is just down to that. But yeah, still sad.
Yeah. So girls, let's change that.
Yeah, let's step it up.
Get all those rich people's money.
And that's an interesting thing is that when I think of an investor, I do think of a man over a woman. I wonder what the percentage of how many male investors versus female investors is.
Good point.
Because I automatically think of male, and all the people that were interested in my pitch were all male. And I mean, the room was mainly male, and the other females, a lot of them were other people pitching and stuff like that, not people investing. So yeah, that's also interesting. Just because guys are, in what we've seen, more males. I wonder if it's got anything to do with they're just maybe more willing to take bigger risks or something like that, or what it comes down to, if it is even a thing.
That does make sense though, doesn't it? I think that's probably a good guess. So yeah.
Which probably comes down to the same reason why there's less women entrepreneurs. Again, because it's a risk.
Yeah, exactly.
The same boils down to the same thing. But we are just chatting out of our asses, so it might not be. Don't take our word for any of this.
So I actually have a question for our listeners. So you could comment on whatever you're listening to us on, or you could send us a little Instagram message or comment on the post that we put up for this episode. But my question is, would you rather keep 100% of something small? So would you rather keep all of a small company or 10% of something huge? And this kind of touches on, I think it was 2 episodes ago. I can't remember what we were talking about, but it was the same kind of question. I remember you made the comparison of the big fish in the small pond.
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So yeah, let us know.
And I asked some really good questions on the topic from our listeners. So it was really hard to choose some. I have narrowed it down to 5.
Okay, let's do it.
So the second one, I'm going to go straight to the second one and then I'll go back to the first one, is something that I have felt when looking for funding
Investment.
is I hate talking about money. How do I pitch without sounding desperate or pushy?
That you're not
What do you
saying,
think,
give me
Dee?
the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I also strongly dislike talking about money. I think for me anyway, it really boils down to because I don't feel like I know what I'm talking about. So anything that you feel like you don't
Imposter
know
syndrome,
about,
yeah.
you're worried to talk about it with authority because especially in a room full of investors that's literally what they do know,
Yeah.
you know. So I think that's what it comes down to. I think because of that, my advice would be to do the research so that when you are talking about it, you can be confident and not feel like you're being pushy. I don't know. What do you think? What would you say?
I think, I mean, at the end of the day, money, it's there for something. So I think if you can be really clear on exactly what you need it for. So like, I need this amount of money for exactly this thing. If you do your plan really well, then I think you can be pretty confident in what you're asking for because you're showing the results for what you're asking for. So it's a transaction, you know. I need this money to get this far, and I can get this product certification, or I can get this piece of equipment that's going to do something, and I think if you can be really clear on where that money's going to take you, then it's in that person's interest to give you that money, basically. And then it's their choice if they want to give it to you or not. So another question is, what if I raise money and then fail? How do you deal with that fear? I feel like this is the main.
Yeah, 100%. That's something that I feel like there isn't a lot of. It's not the part that's talked about a lot. So you don't really, it's like with anything, you hear the successful stories, not the ones that crash and burn. And there's probably just as many, if not more, of the ones that crash and burn. So I think with anything, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be open to the possibility that it's not going to go as you hope. I think that's just, a realistic, not expectation.
Yeah, thing to consider.
To keep in mind. And I feel like if you did manage to get investment and you were in the process of doing it and for whatever reason it does not turn out how you'd want it to turn out, it's not really that much on you. Other people also believed in this idea. So it's not just that I screwed up. If you did manage to get investors, I mean, that's not easy to do. Yeah, it's just something that for whatever reason just wasn't meant to be at that time. But it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking for investment, it's because you don't have that money and you can't take that risk. So I think that's where it's really important to choose your investors wisely because they need to be aware that that is a risk. And if you do fail, then that money will be gone. And obviously protect yourself. Make sure that you haven't got too much in the game. Like they can't take away your house. That would not be ideal. If you're willing to take that risk, then go for it. But,
Yeah, make sure it's not a surprise when you do. On top of the fact that you've just lost your company, you haven't also just lost your house.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this one was really good, and it goes into our point. How do you prove traction when you're still building the product? So there's different ways you can do this. One way is, I mean, obviously it depends so much on the product you have.
Yeah.
But if it is like a product that is sold, you can, for example, like I said before, you could pretend to make it available and then see how many people click buy now, for example.
Yeah.
Or you could talk to the clients, like the toy store or the supermarket or whoever is likely to buy that product, and ask them questions. I mean, traction you can show in so many different ways, and some will be more convincing and less convincing. If you say you sent out a form and you ask people how much they would pay for this product, then that's information and that's data. Whether that's good enough for the investor or not, it's another reason. That's another story. But showing us in whatever way you can think.
Yeah. I guess just showing that people are interested and that there is a gap for this, and that people are going to want to be a part of it and want to get it. Yeah, and the pretending, making it go live, and then seeing how many people want to purchase it is such an interesting way to do it.
So like if you wanted to test a new service at your branding studio, you don't necessarily have to offer it to see how many people are interested. Obviously, you need to make sure that they get something, like maybe a letter.
Well, I mean, I think it could be a very interesting marketing plan, just because then it can lead to this actually isn't available yet, but because you are interested, we're one step closer to making it be possible to be purchasable or whatever. And, putting that twist on it. And then it's almost like a bit of a quirk, and it's, people feel like they're part of something. Like, I think it's definitely something that you could use to your advantage.
And you say you don't do marketing.
As a self-employed person, I wear many hats, but my marketing one is quite small.
I like it. How polished does a pitch deck really need to be to start showing it?
I think more than polished, it has to be clear.
Yeah. And
yeah,
like we said before, show it to as many people as possible. Start with people that aren't, like, don't go burning bridges. Don't show it to the most critical people first.
Yes.
But
yes.
Start showing it as soon as you show the idea of the product or the company. I think, like you say, make your idea clear, and then you can go adding on data depending on the questions people ask you. Is a good way to do it. That's all I've got.
While you were speaking there was a sneeze. If anybody heard that in the background, I don't know. Did you hear the sneeze? Okay, good. 3 dogs in here because it's so hot outside. Everyone's hiding out in here. Yeah. Oh. They're all in here lying next to the aircon.
Can we see them?
You can see, so let's see, as I'm plugged into the mic. Right here is Knox. Then over there is Winnie. And then can you see just his arm? The very, very end over there.
His arm.
His leg is Ipo. So Ipo as in hiccup in Spanish.
So they're hanging out in the aircon, are they?
Yeah, it's the only room in the house that we've got the aircon on at the moment. So everyone, as soon as it hits around 12 o'clock, everyone wants to come in, and they're probably right about now starting to get angsty, wanting to go out. So it's just starting to cool down now. So we'll see. Aww. There was a few movements while we were recording, which I wonder if it got picked up. Them just moving around and looking at me expectantly.
Well, hey, that's today wrapped up. I hope you learned something interesting.
Yeah. We'd love to know if you are looking for investors, if it's something that you are currently doing, and if there's anything that you feel that we missed would be very interesting, something that we could maybe add in another short episode or something like that. If there's anything that, maybe that you've experienced that we haven't touched on today, would be very interesting to know.
Also, fun fact, all of the pitches I gave were based on real companies.
Oh, really? Interesting.
So if you want to invest in one of them,
you can, if you're an investor. But anyway, thank you so much for listening today. Anything that you need from us, you can find us pretty much anywhere you can think of. We Will Manage Podcast. Also the emails, wewillmanagepodcast@gmail.com. All those things.
Also, give us your hate. I want to hear what you don't like about what we do.
What you don't like. That's, constructive if possible. Criticism. It's always very welcome for us to grow in the right direction. The other day I looked up We Will Manage, and we came up like 4th or 5th thing down, which is crazy when We Will Manage is like nothing, you know? When I put in We Will Manage Podcast, we were all over the place. I was like, look at that. So We Will Manage Podcast. If it's just We Will Manage, you might find us, probably won't.
Do you know what we're talking about next week?
I should do. We are talking about... Drum roll, please. Finding your ideal customer and speaking to them. Ooh. So from finding investors to finding customers.
Which is like, it's another kind of investor.
It's another kind of investor.
They're paying your bills. Best kind of investor.
Exactly. So we'll see you there next week. Till next Thursday. Bye.
See you then.